Hi guys, I've seen a massive rise in the amount of cacao that's being bought and used, and a lot of interest around cacao and also shamanism and how we use plants as a medicine. And I started my journey many years ago with ayahuasca, with the plant medicine shaman in the Amazon. And I worked with ayahuasca for many years. And it wasn't until I finished my apprenticeship in 2012 and I went to Mexico and ended up doing an ayahuasca ceremony outside of my community and my family. And the cacao and the ayahuasca was very clear that I had to go and find cacao and bring cacao back to the West. And actually I had been trained using plant medicines to bring cacao back to the West, as this was a much better medicine for Westerners. At that time, I didn't know much about cacao. Obviously, I knew it was chocolate. But I went to Guatemala and I found Keith, and I ended up buying 21 pounds of cacao and stuffing that in my rucksack and returning back to the UK with 21 pounds of cacao. And I didn't know what to do with it. I had trained with ayahuasca, I'd worked in cannabis, but I had never done a plant medicine ceremony with chocolate, and I had no idea how you would start working with cacao or even why cacao was important. And it was sitting there in my rucksack in the corner of my bedroom, and suddenly I decided that maybe I should have a cup of it and commune with it and see what it wanted me to do. And it basically said, look, I'm a really important medicine for the West, and I'm a very gentle, heart-opening medicine. And the stress and anxiety in the West and the way people live their lives is not conducive to really healthy emotional well-being. And actually, cacao is a very gentle, soothing medicine to help people find more of a balance. And basically, cacao said, take me and I will guide you on how you can offer the medicine. So I did a couple of circles, plant medicine circles using cacao with a few friends, tried it out, and then I leapt into the deep end and did my first cacao ceremony and have not looked back. And that was in 2013. And I have seen amazing results with cacao, and cacao is a beautiful plant medicine for a number of reasons. It's not only that she's a powerful heart opener and has a lot of chemicals that can really help us feel good, but she's also a brilliant superfood and is packed full of nutrients. So this talk will explain some of the reasons why I feel she's a really important medicine for this time. The first, I would say, main reason why I think that she's really important is that you don't go out of your body. You don't lose your sense of self. You don't visualize in a way that you hallucinate. There's no hallucinations with cacao. So cacao is a very gentle medicine for people who have never actually come out of their bodies or are quite fearful of leaving their bodies. For example, like ayahuasca or DMT, the quite heavy plant medicines from the Amazon will have you leaving a sense of self, losing your sense of self. With cacao, you don't get that. So she's a very powerful medicine for people who are wanting to step into the world of plant medicine, shamanism, without actually being brutally thrown in at the deep end. So I call her the gateway medicine. She's a great starting point. The second really important reason why I think cacao is important is because she's legal. And this is the last plant medicine left that is legal plant medicine. So basically they have banned all and made illegal all plant medicines or anything that is going to shift consciousness, except cacao. And I can't see them banning cacao anytime in the future. So we are in a unique position to be able to utilize cacao as a plant medicine, as a shifter of consciousness, and do it legally and do it openly. So I can openly be a cacao shaman. And there's a lot of amazing plant medicine shamans in the world, but unfortunately, because it's all been made illegal, they're not able to actually share their gifts and their wisdom and their knowledge openly. So we can do that with cacao. And the third is just the amazing array of goodness that it packs. So let's start with the physical goodness. So number one, it is filled with antioxidants and flavonoids. So it's really rich in antioxidants that are great for the skin, great for the hair, and great for the nails. It gives a glow, and also is packed full of iron, protein, magnesium, sulfur, copper, and more importantly selenium, which is a very difficult mineral to get access to. So it really gives us a really good nutritional boost, and it really enables us to get the minerals that we are really missing, especially difficult ones like copper and magnesium, in the milligrams that we need in order to be healthy. So it has an amazing like superfood bioavailability to it. But what's really powerful is what it does to our mental health and well-being, and this is because it contains the lipid anandamide, and anandamide is the bliss molecule, and it makes us feel high. And the only other plant medicine that has anandamide or releases anandamide in the same levels is cannabis, which is why when you smoke cannabis you get that high. It's the same, it's that release of anandamide releasing. It also helps to release serotonin and dopamine. So serotonin is a very important chemical that enables us to feel very restful, helps us to sleep, calms down the stress and anxiety, and helps us feel very peaceful and calm. And it actually it enables the serotonin to really, it's a really big dose of serotonin when we eat chocolate or cacao. So when we eat chocolate we get that peaceful buzzy feeling. It's because it's releasing serotonin into the brain. It also releases dopamine, which is that loved up, blissed out feeling that we get when we're in love. So it also enables us to experience those feelings of love and peace when we take cacao. So when we have it in chocolate, which is how it's mostly known as a confectionery, it's filled with fats and vegetable solids and milk and a load of other things. So we lose the purity. But pure cacao is just the cacao beans. So pure cacao paste is the cacao beans ground down and turned into a paste. And that is your pure 100% unadulterated raw cacao. And so you are really getting a very deep process, a really deep food with pure ceremonial cacao. So cacao has been in our diets, not for very long, for about 400 years, but it has been used for thousands of years around across Central America and Mesoamerica, and it was called food of the gods. And it was called food of the gods because it has a very special element to it, and that is the theobromine. And theobromine was considered food of the gods because it works like caffeine, but it has a totally different properties to caffeine. So it increases energy. So it increases the oxygen blood flow to the brain. So it makes us feel more agile, more awake, more alert. It also is a great diuretic. It's great for weight loss. It helps us to metabolize our blood sugars and our blood sugar levels. And it also gives us the energy of caffeine, but without that spike and crash. So we get this long build up, this opening build up of energy without actually losing the crash and actually feeling jittery or anxious. In fact, cacao is an amazing medicine because it doesn't make us feel anxious. It actually makes us feel much more peaceful. So it prevents blood clots and it helps thin the blood. So it's a great medicine, and it works like having an aspirin a day. So if you had cacao a day, you would feel that your blood was thinning. It also is a great it stops premature aging, so it's a great youthfulness, and this is because it contains a load of antioxidants, the same as the amount of is in green tea and black tea. So actually it actually keeps us from aging. It also really helps the heart, not only because it opens up the heart, but because it gives oxygen and improves the blood to the heart. So it's a fantastic way of keeping the heart healthy. It also contains up to 700 compounds within this complex antioxidants, and prevents hardening of the arteries as well. Drinking a cup of cacao before you eat helps to metabolize the blood sugars and also helps to lose weight. And it also balances hormonal swings, so it's really a great medicine for women. If you're premenstrual or menstrual or postmenstrual, it really helps with the hormonal balance. But what I found with cacao is that she's super gentle, in that she's really, really powerful, but in a way where we can work with her on a very, on a way that is easily communicatable and understandable. So when we drink cacao in ceremony, we go on a journey to meet the cacao spirit. So in shamanism, or animism, we believe everything has a spirit. Every living thing has a spirit, including inanimate objects like stones. So everything holds a spirit, a consciousness, an awareness. And when you walk on the shamanic path, you are able to communicate with these different elements that live on this planet with us. So if you can imagine a frequency of a radio spectrum, and we are tuned into the three-dimensional spectrum, so we are seeing within our five senses, and we are very limited within those five senses and what those five senses can we experience with them. And what shamanism does is that it enables us to turn the dial in order to open up our consciousness to be able to communicate with the plant world and the animal world, and also anything that's living on this planet, including the stones, the waters, the air, the wind. Everything has a spirit to it and a consciousness to it. And in shamanism, it's this understanding that we are all one, that there's no separation, and that when we communicate with these different elements, we have a much more profound understanding of how the world works and how we work within the world, and how we have this symbiotic connection and relationship with the world. And especially with plant medicines, because humans have always ingested plants ever since the very beginning of time. In fact, we need plants for our conscious evolution. We have always used plants to consciously evolve, to understand our place in the world. And plants have always been a massive important part of our understanding of how the world works. And in the last 200 years, there's been a massive disconnect, certainly in the last 100 years, even more so, a disconnect between our relationship with the plant world, with the living world, and ourselves. And what we've done is that we've created this huge separation between ourselves and the ecological ecosystem that we live within. And this separation has created a disconnect that has created a massive internal depression in humans. And I believe that ayahuasca and iboga and peyote and San Pedro and all the other plant medicines that are coming out of the Amazon and coming out of hiding are coming because we are in a desperate need to reawaken this understanding of connection with the living world in order to change our behavior and start living more in tune with our natural world, in order to keep a planet healthy for future generations. And yet, while this push by the plants to come out into the world to actually spread their medicines and reawaken, there's been a pushback by the governments to ban that potential and to stop it. And so the last plant standing is cacao. And here we are in a moment in history, really, where we have a choice as a species. And our choice is that we change our behavior in order to leave a planet thriving for future generations, or we continue on the same trajectory that we're going, and actually we end up dying out because we no longer have healthy food, we no longer have the awareness of the natural world, and we actually pollute so much of our water systems, our air systems, our food chain, brains that actually in the end we cannot sustain 7 billion, 8 billion, 10 billion people on the planet as we procreate. So taking cacao or drinking cacao now is a fantastic first step on the plant medicine path. And I've certainly seen a massive rise in people who are drinking cacao at the moment. And this is because you will automatically start feeling better. It is a brilliant anti-maldepressant. It will release that serotonin. And if you take an SSRI or an antidepressant, that's what the SSRI is doing. It's chemically releasing serotonin into the brain. So if you have a mild antidepressant and you don't want to be on SSRIs, then taking cacao on a daily basis, 25 grams a day, 25 grams a day, you will certainly start seeing a shift in your brain chemicals. And like I mentioned in my talk on the dark retreat, we are walking chemicals. So whatever we're releasing in our brain, this is how it's having a direct effect on our emotional and mental health and well-being. So if we're in a high levels of stress and anxiety, we are releasing a lot of cortisol, and we are releasing a lot of adrenaline. And usually when we're in the fight and flight mode, that is the stress and anxiety, the body is only designed to take that on at very short spurts. But at the moment, we are just impacting on all our faculties, because we are in this constant high state of alert. And this does not bode well for a long-term, sustainable, healthy immune system and healthy mental and emotional state of mind. And so what cacao can do can immediately lower the cortisol rate by releasing serotonin and dopamine and anandamide into the brain, giving you a new and a different chemicals, and those chemicals can then override some of that cortisol and that adrenaline, calm everything down, so you start feeling better. And when you start feeling better, you start sleeping better. When you start sleeping better, you start eating better. When you start eating better, you start exercising more. And it is a cycle, and it really starts with what's happening inside the body. So it's very difficult to sit in meditation if you're in highly stressed and agitated. Very, very, very difficult. Very difficult to have the energy to go out and walk around a park if you're feeling highly stressed and agitated. So cacao is a really brilliant first step to help lower some of that agitation, that stress and anxiety, in order to start the process towards health and well-being, both mentally and emotionally. Something I've also found when I take people on shamanic journeys with cacao is that it really opens up the heart and releases old and stale energies around the heart. So for many of us, we are holding a lot of pain in our hearts from relationships that we may not have overcome, or have been very hurt in the past, or things that happened in the past. And we hold a lot of that in our heart, which is why heart disease is the biggest killer. In England, and certainly in the West, most people die from heart disease, and that is because we don't have an understanding of that shamanic spiritual concept of the emotional pain having a direct effect on our physical body. And again, in shamanism, people would go to the shaman in order to work through their stuff in order to get well. And in shamanism, we know that most physical illnesses start from an emotional root. And so heart disease is one of the biggest killers, and cacao is a fantastic medicine to help heal some of the wounds of the heart, to actually release some of that stale energy, find that forgiveness, find that self-love. And that is also because of the serotonin, dopamine and anandamide that is being released. So it's all interconnected between the chemical releases that cacao can do, and also its more spiritual properties or conscious properties that it allows. Also, cacao, for me, she comes as a beautiful maiden spirit, so a very kind of innocent spirit, very sweet. If you take more of the Amazonian medicines, they're quite violent. You are purging, vomiting, shitting, very, very intense. Cacao's super gentle. There's usually the purge is through crying, through tears, which is also another beautiful way to balance the chemicals in the body. When we cry, we actually release and restore the body back into balance. So having a good cry can really help, and cacao really does that. It helps us weep and release some of those chemical blockages. And also what cacao does is it helps us really sleep much better after a cacao ceremony, and it helps us process things. It puts us into a very deep state, calm state, so we can also start processing things, because when we're in a highly agitated, it's very difficult to think clearly. So lowering some of that stress and agitation really helps us to think clearly. It's a beautiful medicine. It grows all the way around the world, throughout the equator. It has to grow within 20 degrees of the equator. Unfortunately, the plant medicine cacao has been very, very abused through child labor, and by the farmers not getting a good price for the cacao. So it has definitely a commoditized, cacao's been commoditized. And also, this is because our connection with plant medicines has really been severed. So we don't understand the power of cacao and the way we have to treat these plant medicines with the reverence and honor that they really deserve, because without plant medicines, we have this disconnect from nature. We need the plants in order to be able to wake up. So it is really, really important that we honor and respect these plants, and that anyone who's working with these plants get the right pay, and they also can make a good livelihood from these from working with these plants. So ceremonial grade raw cacao is cacao that hasn't been processed, that has grown organically with using ancient wild varieties, hand harvested, fermented. All cacao is fermented, but also there's been no slave labor, that everyone gets a fair price, and that it's been sowed and harvested with love. So that's ceremonial cacao, and that is why it's important to journey with ceremonial cacao, because if you want to connect deeply with the spirit of cacao, then that spirit of cacao really has to be nurtured and looked after in order to get that connection with the cacao. So ceremonial grade cacao is really important if you're wanting to work on a ceremonial level with her. Also, with cacao, what's really important is not buying it, the confectionery side of it. Cacao's kind of been hidden with the whole chocolate thing, but actually we're talking about the pure cacao paste. And the difference between cacao and cocoa is that cocoa is burnt, so it has been overheated, and cacao is not cooked at all. Sometimes the beans are lightly roasted. Some people will lightly roast the beans to draw out the flavor, but it is not necessary to roast the beans, and actually you can get organic raw cacao. Now, there's a big problem happening on the planet at the moment with cacao, and this is GM. There is a strain called CN51 that a lot of the South American governments are pushing onto farmers. CN51 is the big cacao beans that are purple, and they're really pushing for that. And as CN51 takes hold, this GMO crop is pollinating and infecting ancient varieties of cacao. So we are working specifically at Ritual Cacao to preserve the ancient varieties of cacao, to make sure that cooperatives are still able to wild harvest pure ancient varieties of this bean. I mean, cacao prior to being eaten used to be a currency. That was how valuable cacao was. In Montezuma's tomb, when they opened Montezuma's tomb, they didn't find gold, they found cacao beans. And they didn't even know it was a food at the time. When the Spanish first came across to South America, they didn't realize that cacao was a food, because it was used as a currency. And so this was how valuable the cacao bean was considered to people of Mesoamerica and Central America. They revered it so much that it's even in their creation stories. Very much a lot of the creation myths are about humans being birthed through cacao, working with cacao. Cacao has been in our understanding and in our consciousness for thousands of years, like cannabis. Also another ancient old plant medicine, like ayahuasca, another ancient and old plant medicine. So these three medicines I've been working with for the last 22 years. deeply, deeply connected to ayahuasca, cannabis, and cacao. And I really feel that these plant medicines are really trying to get our attention, wake us up, recognize that we are a part of this amazing ecosystem, this amazing planet. And actually, we are the ancestors for the future generations. And when we recognize and realize that we are the ancestors for our future generations, we realize we have a responsibility to actually work with these plants, to offer these plant medicines in order to help people remember this connection with Mother Earth, this connection with the plants, this connection to our amazing ecosystem, in order to change our behavior to a much healthier way. Because when we have a healthy relationship with ourselves, we have a healthy relationship with Mother Earth. When we have a healthy relationship with Mother Earth, we have a healthy relationship with ourselves. We realize there is no separation. And since this lockdown, and we have been put into what I call the chrysalis, we're really becoming much more aware of ourselves, who we are. We've had less interaction with people, so we're becoming to dive inwards. And also, we're now reaching this place where we're starting to think forward thinking, and that can lead to a lot of worry and a lot of stress, because we don't know what's going to happen next. And we're all trying to work it out, and it's very difficult. So if you have been feeling like that, and you don't want to go on antidepressants, and you would like to try something that's going to help just calm that mental state, so that you can start doing more meditation, more yoga, go for walks and feel more calmer, then taking cacao is a brilliant first step. It also, because it offers all those antioxidants, flavonoids, proteins, irons, it will automatically make you feel physically better as well. Me, everything's on ritualcacao.co.uk if you want to know more. And wishing you all a wonderful night, and viva la medicina, and thank you for staying and listening to me. Hopefully see you soon online. Bye for now.